Hey guys, at the end, spoken label, waving hands around tonight, the amazing Charlotte Faulconbridge. As I hinted in the first half, Charlotte is going to do not one, not two, not three, but four poems. And I'm going to put her with a rinser after each poem, I promise you as well. Not really, right? But we will be asked to talk about them each piece for go along. So over to you, Charlotte, okay? Give us your first poem.
Thank you. So this one is called The Only One, and it was the first poem I ever wrote. And my theme for the poems today is the end of the year, so I'm very reflective. So I wanted to do sort of standout poems that I've written since June, since my poetry journey sort of began. So yeah, this is called The Only One, and it's in my book in between some of my chapters, as I wanted to break the chapters up for people who struggle reading big text sort of in one go. And it's a very short poem just about how it feels to be autistic, because that's how most of my poems sort of come out and express themselves. And for all the people watching YouTube or watching the video, I am going to be doing this one in BSL because that's, again, kind of my main language. So yeah, I hope you enjoy and maybe learn a couple of signs along the way. So this is The Only One. It's like I'm the only one who can feel the earth spinning on its tilt. Yet no one believes me as everything looks still. It's like I'm the only one who can feel our planet hurtling around the sun, yet no one believes me as everything carries on. It's like I'm the only one who can feel we're falling through time and space, yet no one believes me as nothing ever breaks. It's like I'm too alien for Earth, too human for outer space, yet no one believes me as I wear the same old face. Thank you. That's the first one.
That is absolutely beautiful. And I think doing it as a BSL as well. Hold on a second. I think doing it as BSL really adds it the different layer to it as well. There's a poet in Northern Ireland, I don't know if you know him, called Michael Wilson. He does full sets using BSL, he does with his poetry. But he's the other way around. He actually learned it as an adult. Your case, you've done it the other way around and to top of it there. So do you find, and obviously with your poetry itself, then, say for example, when you're writing them now, do you actually do them through BSL first, or do they come straight as words?
Well, that's so interesting a question to ask, because depending on what subject I'm writing about, it really depends, because in BSL, you don't have a sign for every word. So like the second poem that I'm going to do tonight, I couldn't do that in BSL because there aren't a lot of signs for a lot of the words. So, or a lot of signs double up meaning two words. So it's intuitive, but it's not. So yeah, it honestly depends on what poem it is, which is why sometimes, like, I've only done one full set in sign language before because it just depends if the words work with the signs. So yeah, it's a bit of it depends really, the answer to that.
When I was hearing this one back, and I have to be honest with this as well, I actually started composing music for this in my head, actually, bizarrely enough. It's very me that I was sat there thinking, I thought, heck, I could do my own space ambient music on top of that, because there's a lot of references to like the earth and space and stuff, and it's
Well, I'm such a fan of space and Doctor Who and anything nerdy. So yeah,
yeah.
that's
Well, we hinted at it in the first half, and I've got to ask you then, who's your favourite Doctor?
Tennant. Like,
Oh, it's got to be the Tennant for me. The modern one, certainly, yeah.
yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt.
I grew up, listen, I grew up because I'm older, not that old. We were originally watching Tom Baker.
Yeah, he's my
And
second.
what, oh, he's unbelievable, he is him. That's why, but Tennant's brilliant. And it's great seeing back in Doctor Who. Even though it's only for a short while this time. We've got two more weeks, haven't we, by looking at things. But yeah, definite pleasure. So that one, yeah. And I could definitely see you, like I said, that one there, yeah. It's brilliant, that one piece, because I'd love the reference about when you say you're too human for outer space or you're too alien for Earth. And it's because what I think is really good about that piece me is there's a conflict in it, and the conflict I think is you're not given a straight answer to that. And I think I like that when you're going to make you wearing the same old face, even though you're only 24.
Yeah, yeah, and I think as well with that poem, because all the things I'm sort of explaining about, the earth spinning, you know, literally falling through time and space, I think because they're all things that are actually happening. So it's not even like I'm making things up. And I think that's the point of the poem, is that, you know, you're trying to tell someone that, you know, about yourself that is actually happening, but no one can see it, but yet it's still happening. So that's why I use those really sort of strong concepts, because yeah, those are actual things that are happening. You just can't see them. No one can see that, but it doesn't mean they're not there. So
yeah, you know, I agree. What you've done, I think you've done really well with this piece as well. Is like you talk. A lot of it is on you're doing the emphasis for about yourself and the world. So it makes yourself look like an insignificantly piece of grass,
yeah,
but you are important to yourself.
yes.
That's what I think. Yeah, excellent stuff. Great start. Okay, I'm not going to grind you more on that one. on to piece number 2.
On to piece number 2. So this is something that I wrote on the day of the whole Barbie Oppenheimer thing, when those 2 films came out. And I wanted to do this poem today, even though people might think, oh, it's irrelevant, but it's actually not, because the message still is really true. But yeah, I wanted to do it today because it's the first poem of mine ever got published, and one of the first that I ever wrote. So I was really it was a really proud moment of mine. So yeah, I wanted to bring it today. And yeah, the whole media rivalry behind the whole Barbie Oppenheimer thing was basically saying, you know, you which film are you going to see? And I'm an absolute nerd, but I'm also a girly girl. So it's like, well, why can't we see both? You know, why does it have to be this sort of gender, you know, this really strict gender rule between what I'm supposed to like and what the media is telling me I'm supposed to like? So yeah, that's why I wrote this poem. And honestly, I wrote, talking about Beehive earlier, I wrote this 5 minutes before Beehive, and then performed it that night, not really thinking if it was any good. And then yeah, it was the first poem of mine that got published in various places. So yeah, that was really cool. So yeah, this one is called Nuclear Fuchsia. Why do I have to pick between pink and quantum mechanics? Can I not like electromagnetism as well as blush and bubblegum? Can I not wear magenta as I calculate inertia? Or split the atom whilst wearing shades of salmon? What if I wore carnation to learn about the H-bomb's creation, or drench myself in watermelon as I witness particle acceleration because I like brains and I like them big? And no, not just because the cerebral cortex is pink, but because I like to think, not just to look pretty. My general relativity shouldn't be defined by my taste in colour theory, but it says here, fuchsia or fission. That is my decision. But can I not be more than one thing? Because I'm a beauty and a geek. So give me particle accelerators by the sea, quantum calculations written in cerise, the thermodynamics of our energy and the gravitational waves of the universe's synergy, not a pastel ultimatum with a half-life of rosy momentum. So spare a thought for my centripetal force and the spin of my reactor's nucleus core, because whether I like the dusky tones of photon diffraction, my matter matters. So yeah, that's Nuclear Fuchsia, and it's one of my favourites.
Brilliant stuff. Yeah.
What? Sorry.
Sorry, I'm coughing to death in the background then. So no, my chest ain't great at the minute. So it's purposely when you're diabetic, it cold, so you can never shift it. So what I was going to say to you is that is such. It's interesting. You didn't think much of that poem. So you just read it out. I think it's really shows that the way your brain processes stuff as your physics side, the physician side, or the scientific side.
Yeah, I think obviously it's just how I think about stuff. So I just think, oh, it's not anything special. But so many people said you need to get that out there because it's such a good poem, and what you're trying to say. You know,
no, I like it. I like it because I love the comparison. Can I not like electromagnetism as well as blush and bubblegum? I thought that's such a good comparison. That is, yeah, like a splitting the atom while waving shades of slamming. Yeah, it's really good questions you're asking there, and even the rhythm is really, really tight on this piece as well. That's why. So it's certainly, I think it's when you get into your poetry more sometimes, there's some pieces that stand up well on the page or as a performance piece. This I think does both.
I think that's the thing, because I did a video of it that again has gotten thousands of views by this point. Yeah, as well as it being published in journals, it works performance wise as well as in the video. So it's good because I don't often write stuff that looks good doing both. So it was nice that piece brought both of those things together. And it was the first time I ever enjoyed performing a poem, because before then it was so anxiety inducing. I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed writing it, but not saying it. So yeah, it was a turning point for me. And then the response it got was brilliant. So yeah.
Yeah. The other question I've got, I'm interested in learning about this piece is, this is the awkward poet in me now asking, is I love the ending of it where you've done like, because I like the dusky tones of photon different, I can't pronounce that word, but my matter matters. What made you want to do the last line, that my matter matters, with the repetition slightly?
Yeah, well, I think I love in a poem when I use a word twice in a row that the words mean different things. So obviously, saying my matter is saying, my cells, my atoms, they matter. So I love doing that in poems, using the same word but with different meanings. It's just something I really like to do, and it just worked perfectly to finish that poem, so it had to go in.
I think it works. I think it works really well, to be honest with you. But it's one of those ones where sometimes, if you're not careful on it, you can trip yourself up in it. But you fought it outright, and I think you did right with that piece, haven't you?
It's such a hard poem to say as well, because all the words, I find it so hard to say without the words in front of me, because again, I'm not good at speaking, so it's trying to remember all the long words. It's a nightmare.
Yeah,
And that's
it's
why I
on
wouldn't
my
be able
iPad as well.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be able to do that one in BSL because there aren't signs for a lot of those words, so you'd have to spell them out. But obviously, the rhythm of doing a poem, you couldn't spell out those words with the rhythm you're saying it. So yeah, it'd be a bit of a mission to try and
Yeah,
sign.
I'm just side of the coin of it, because I obviously been dyspraxic. I can put the words down on the paper, but then when I get on stage, I can end up completely making a dog's dinner of pronouncing the words.
Yeah,
And do you find that yourself sometimes when you're doing your readings now?
yeah, absolutely. Because just speaking is not easy. So I do, I used to stammer a lot. I used to trip on my words. So yeah, I do struggle getting words out for sure. So especially with that one, I mean, I'm glad that went through just in one take, if I'm honest, because
People
that
don't know that. We don't tell people that on spoken
yeah,
word.
no,
All
I'm
right.
just saying that is a rare event that you've just witnessed. Say that all in one go. So yeah, that was a
Brilliant.
moment for me.
That was tremendous indeed. So, okay, have me to shut up again and have another massive coughing fit. Back to you for poem number 3.
So this one is kind of okay. The story behind why I wrote it, I'm going to explain that first. It's called Dreamcatcher, and I wrote this on the day I was supposed to go and see Elton John in the summer. But because of my chronic illness, I have to miss out on a lot of things in my life, and always have done. Next year will actually be 10 years of living with my chronic illness. And even though I'm 24, when people say to me, oh, how old are you? I can't answer straight away because I don't feel my age, because I've not really, I've gone from being a child to an adult. I've not had my teenage years. That's all been taken away from me. And yeah, it just happened that on the day I was supposed to see Elton John, I had a really bad flare up, and I couldn't walk very well, so I wasn't able to go. So I wrote this poem, and it really helped me get a lot of that grief out there, because yeah, it's really hard to live with when 10 years later it's still going on strong, and you can't move on until you start processing it. And it will always be a part of me that I've missed that part of my life. So yeah, it's important to write about. So yeah, this is about living with my chronic illness and not having to miss out on the things you want to do whilst everyone else is living the events that you want to be living. So hope I've explained that concisely. Probably not, but yeah, here we go. So this is Dreamcatcher. There is a time at the end of the day when all of the world just falls away, and all that is left is you in your bed with a ticking time bomb for a head. My alarm clock rings at the exact same time, but if it broke, I don't think I'd mind. I'm so sick of staring at my ceiling, it's just an alibi for your feelings. I count the clock, picturing my wings. My feathers were soft, but now they just sting, a constant reminder of what I could have been, but these wings were just not made for me. But you, look at your plume. Round the world you flew whilst I stayed in my room. I saw the crescent, you saw the whole of the moon. I saw you dance on top of Mars. I had to sit back and watch from afar. You saw the stars set behind the sun, whilst my space and time was being undone. I watched as you dove deep into the abyss, whilst I cowered in the shadow of your eclipse. I caught a glimpse of you above Saturn, whilst I lay in your orbital pattern. I saw you swim in the sea of tranquility, whilst I drowned under the weight of your gravity. You found the many in the one, as I questioned my general relativity. So how do I dream so big when my eyes barely close? Maybe it's the way I wish for a better way to make it in this world. This dream catching will be the death of me, as now I'm left with something I want to see. But these dreams were just not made for me. So thank you. I do get quite emotional reading that one out, because I think because it's such a slow-paced poem as well, it just slows time down when I read it. So I'm properly in the moment and you can't get out of that moment. So yeah, that is an emotional one to read. But yeah, just an ongoing battle, really.
It's completely different pace to the other two pieces, I think. Because the first one you can argue was, well, I would never use the word light, but it was like very different to the second one. The second one was really quite a technical piece. I think all the words mixing around between the two various forms. This is, I guess, it's like the Dreamcatcher is a good title for this piece, because it just does feel like it was weird sort of dreams to me in this one, or that moment where you're close to sleep or close to waking up. And
I think again, it's interesting. This is why I love this selection of poems. This was very early on. I couldn't explain things literally because they were too painful. So by using my kind of comforting space, kind of imagery, I was able to express myself. But yeah, it's a hard one to read, and it was really hard to write as well, because it was probably the first thing I wrote about my chronic illness, which has now led me to be able to write loads of things. But yeah, it was definitely challenging. Oh, I think you're still on mute, Andy.
I am still on mute there. Anyway, see, perks today when I'm having coffee fits because my chest is rubbish. I'm having to keep muting myself, and then basically I forget to unmute myself. But yeah, with this poem, everything is about the tone in this piece for me, because it's a very, very softly poem, and I can see from it's like within the length of it as well. It was one. I think it must have took you a while to write this piece as well. Now, the one question I'm interested in about this piece is, because the structure of it, if people read it, it's 4 lines per stanza all the way down, right to the end. When the last stanza is not that at all. So was that a conscious decision to actually break your form at the end of the last stanza?
That last bit of the poem is actually part of a song that I've written.
Ding.
Yeah, and basically I got the whole poem from that verse in this song that I wrote. So I think and this is one of the challenges of separating music from poetry, is that it's so hard when I take inspiration from one of my songs, because in my head I've got the music playing, but yet that's not the rhythm of the poem. So yeah, it wasn't a conscious decision, but for me it just worked well, because I think I've got this steady pace, and it needed something as an ending, I think, to ground me as a reader. So
yeah, I think it works really well. I think sometimes it's great when you're actually doing a poem where you're quite rigid in your structure and your rhythm, then to just kick it in the head on the last stanza basically altogether, which I think you've done there. It does work definitely. So great.
I do that quite a lot now with poems if I want to make a particular point. So yeah, it's another device I like to use. But yeah, unintentional with that one. So
okay, let's move on to, let's use the words big finale then, right? Because the last piece I think is definitely the most heavy hitting pieces at the four of them, I think, straight away. So, and I think you've made the right choice doing this as the last piece, I believe, as well. So
yes,
over to you.
I'm glad we agree on that. I'm glad we agree. And yeah, I chose to do this one because this is my most recent poem. So it's nice. I've got the first poem I wrote, my most recent one, and then some highlights in between. And yeah, I really wrote this in response to when people tell me that I don't look autistic. And it is called You Don't Look Autistic, but I might rename it to be called Take a Shot every time I say the word autistic, because reading it back. I say it a lot amount of times, but it is fairly important to the poem. So yeah, this is You Don't Look Autistic. They say my concealment is an achievement. It's my biggest bereavement. The greatest impeachment to my heart and soul, yet I'm blamed for the inconvenience of digging my own 6-foot hole. But it was never my goal to enroll this guard on parole. It grew and evolved like a cheese with mould. It was out of my control. I didn't get to choose what stuffing was used to fill the stole, nor that the thread that sewed my seams was bronze, not gold. So saying I don't look like the thing that I am is the most insulting compliment I will never understand. Mainly because it's not a compliment. It's a remark that should be banned, judgment from the highest chain in command. You don't look autistic, you're too pretty. The exact words from my GP, someone with a medical degree telling me that my brain is too ugly to match my physique. You don't look autistic, you're a woman. We can multitask, you know, it's not an illusion. You don't look autistic, you've got wit. Well, you don't look like an arsehole, but you're still talking shit. You don't look autistic is what they say to comfort me. But really it's for them as they're uncomfortable with the labelling. It's denial. You loaded the rifle for this trial of revival, triggering these thoughts into spiral. I've got more sleeves than a record cabinet full of vinyl that cover my scars of suicidal survival. They say it like I won a prize for lying. Even though I'll die trying to fight this gravity-defying conspiring, but you don't make it easy to tell the truth. I wish I could, but all the bullying and abuse, calling me a duck when I'm clearly a goose, a few screws loose, neatly tied up in a noose, I learnt that the world wasn't a safe space where I could let my heart run loose. I was 6 when I first asked my mum if I was adopted. I felt that disconnected from my own genetics. I thought I was her glitch in the matrix, the family's prosthetic. I wish you could see it, because it's so beautiful. It's revolving in a different direction to the earth, gazing for stars in every stranger. It's dreaming in the day, the world's colours conspiring to overwhelm the grey. It's singing in the rain. They're right in a way. I don't look autistic, because autism is not some look of shame. It's a testament to our human flame. They just don't want to see it, as then they would have to acknowledge it. Do something about it. Help. You don't look autistic is the worst card I can be dealt, because being autistic is my favourite thing about myself. Thank you.
The last line is perfect there, straight away. Because it's, I mean, you bring in the full piece, because like it's saying it's, I think when you're a creative person and you learn to live with it, that's the last line's crucial there, basically. So
I think, but as well, it's just true. Like, it is my favourite thing about myself. And I think what people, fail to forget is that, actually having these difficulties, that isn't the hard part. It's people's opinions and people's views and people making your life harder that is the hard part. And I think that's the point I'm trying to make. It's being autistic, that's not the issue. It's the response from other people, that's the issue.
Yeah, no, you do. And you've carried it, I think, some very clever ways in this piece, because like it's the bit when you swore in it, I thought that was a nice bit of humour.
Yeah.
It was done right, because it would make most audiences laugh, I suspect.
Yeah.
But then you could have you stopped at that point. You could have turned it into a comedy piece. But then it was like, but I mean, you're right with that. But I also like the line, 2 lines before it as well, where you don't look autistic, you're a woman. We can multitask, it's not an illusion. I thought, yeah, that again is slightly humorous, but that's the more serious side. And it's
just, it's
true.
Yeah.
It's true. So now I said, no, I can't relate to it. It's not a woman, but I've got a wife that certainly could have some lines on that. So yeah, no, really, really good piece that as well. And did you find then, because obviously people will read, listening back to this, and notice that's a fair bit longer than your other poems. So are your more newer stuff getting longer then, do you reckon?
I think so, because I think, and again, from listening to everyone else, I realised poetry isn't just one thing, and one poet doesn't just have one style and doesn't just write about one thing. I think it's being able to think, okay, well, this isn't my usual style, but that's okay. It's not a bad thing. And I think with my Beehive set, especially, which is where I debuted this, I actually wrote the poems for Beehive specifically for Beehive.
Oh,
Other than the only one and my misheard lyrics poem, I wrote those before. But other than that, I wrote everything for that event because, you know, I was new on the scene. People didn't really know me, and I wanted to sort of say hello and sort of tell my story, without having to message everyone, getting to know them, you know, in the conventional way. I just wanted people to know exactly what my story was, who, you know, what I've been through, what I'm all about in one sort of 20-minute bundle. And I think I achieved that with my set sort of overall. But yeah, and I love performing this piece tonight, which is why I chose it, because it's my favorite one to perform, and because it ends just on such a not even uplifting note, just truthful to who I am, really. Just yeah,
no, it's a great choice to finish with today, definitely. So it's been a great set. Oh, well, thank you for today, Charlotte. It's been a pleasure. Really, really enjoyed this today.
Thank you. I have as well, surprisingly. Talking to someone I don't know, it's been
well, look at it. You know me now anyway, as I always say. And when book number 2 is ready, give us a shout, because you are definitely welcome to come back on here again. Okay, so
I'll be back if I'm allowed. Definitely.
yeah, oh, you will be. As soon as the Arnold Schwarzenegger saying, "I'll be back," right? anyway, guys and girls, we're going to wrap up here. So we'll talk to Charlotte a bit more off mic anyway. So thank you again, Charlotte. It has been definitely been a pleasure today, and certainly not a privilege.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been lovely. Thank you.
Okay, guys and girls. Well, like I said before, that's it for another episode today. We will be back. Well, I said, Arnie says, "I'll be back." So, but I'm going to use the saying that over at Muse AEW uses, okay? And I've got Don Callis uses over there. Stay safe, and more importantly, stay over. And we will see you all next time.